Alright, what's going on, fellow shade tree mechanics? I just wanted to take a video. This is a 2008 Land Rover LR2. Bought it with a knocking motor. Alright, and now I know why the guy sold it to me so cheap. His mechanic, dealer, wants $12,000 to do this job. $7,000 for a new engine and the rest is labor. Called around to local mechanic shops to see if I could get one of those guys to do it so I wouldn't have to deal with it, and they won't even touch it. They were telling me to take it to the dealer. I guess they're scared of the name. Alright, don't be scared of the name because that's a Volvo engine in there. Also, just a little quick tip. If you are looking for an engine for this thing, do not look up a Land Rover 3.2 liter engine. Like I said, this is a 2008 Land Rover LR2. Yeah, but that is a Volvo motor. Alright, you look up a Land Rover motor, you're going to pay $2,200 at the junkyard. You look up a 2008 Volvo S80 3.2 liter, and it is the same exact engine. The engine code is B6324S, and you can see them on eBay all day. Nobody advertises them as Land Rover motors, but it's the same exact motor. I believe it's made by Ford nowadays. It's a Volvo motor, I guess. I don't know. It's made out of Ford Bridgend company in Sweden. But I'll show you the engine code to prove it to you, but it's the same exact motor, and compared to $2,200, you can actually find one with decent miles for like $800 at a junkyard. Okay, quick tip there. Alright, so basically what I did here is the book says this engine needs to be dropped out the bottom. I don't really have that much clearance in my garage to get this thing out the bottom. So I started just taking stuff off and went from there. Started with the bumper cover. I'll put a link in the description for that. There's a good video out there. I forget whose video it is, but I'll give you a shout out once I figure out who it is. But yeah, once you take off that bumper cover, I'll put the link in the description. You take off the bumper support that goes across. Fairly simple. I'll put another link in the description from the same YouTube video set, but literally it's just 4 bolts. You take those off and on the other side and just pull that right off. I then took off the fenders so that I could get to these bolts right here, which allow me to take off the radiator support frame and really open this thing up. I'll put a link in the description, same video set, but it's he has videos for the fenders, the bumper support, but he did not have a video for that I saw for this, for the radiator support. But basically, once you get the fenders off and the bumper off, these 2 bolts right here, these 2 bolts right here, same thing on the other side, and pretty much it just comes right off, and then you have this wide open space. This will also come off. It's just 3 bolts right down there and there that come right out, and that'll drop out. And because I'm doing this by myself, I could probably manage to get this engine out the way this is, but since I'm doing this by myself, I'm gonna drop the lower subframe, basically this whole piece down here. Now the book is super complicated on how to take that out. It is not that hard, and I will actually do a video of what I do for that. Alright, so I got the tires off, and it's probably hard to see. Let me get a light. Hold on. Alright, so before you can start removing the subframe, so the book tells you to unbolt that bolt and that bolt so that you can take that stuff off, but I'd rather just leave all that attached because I don't feel like having to slide that back in there, getting the bushings lined up, all that stuff. Anyway, before you can start, you got to take off what is that called? That, I can't think of it. Basically the sway bar linkage, and then you got to take off the steering tie rod, basically. Alright, try not to twist that part there when you take it off, otherwise you have to get an alignment. Probably a good idea to get alignment anyway after you're done. But also I'm going to remove the ball joint from the knuckle here. Anyway, that's where it is. Before I can start, and you'll do that for both sides. For the axle itself, you also have to remove the axle half shaft from the transmission on both sides. Also, you have to undo that right there. That's the lines for the power steering. Goes to the rack and pinion from the power steering pump. You have to undo that there. Some fluid is probably going to leak out. After you open that up, you want to cover that up and keep it as clean as possible, because any contamination in your rack and pinion is going to mess up your rack and pinion. To take out the axle, you have to take off that nut there, that bolt. But there's a special tool that they sell that's supposed to go on here and it pushes the axle out. But literally the only special tool you need is you'll put the bolt back in just loosely, and then get a socket that fits over with an extension and just tap it out, and then you'll be able to remove the axle out of that side. On the other side, you can do the same thing on this side, you know, remove everything exactly the same, and then you're going to want to undo basically the supports here that hold these power steering lines on the subframe, so that you don't break them when you're dropping this thing. And there's one bolt inside the cab that attaches the steering column to the rack and pinion, which needs to be removed, which is, try and get a shot of that. Which is right there. So, and you'll get that removed, and that'll allow everything to slide out the bottom. The bolts you're going to want to remove are, give me a minute, you're going to want to undo that. Same thing on the other side. It's kind of hard to show you on that side. And then underneath, and I do have jack stands. You always want to work with jack stands to be on the safe side. I got these 6-ton ones because it'll be gives me a little more room to work under here. So basically, they want you to remove these, which go to the lower control arms, but you don't need to undo those. Once you undo the ball joint, the whole piece will just lower, and those are one-time use bolts, so that's another reason why I don't want to take those off. They're stretch bolts, they're not just regular torque. I forget what it is. Also, just a heads up, the manual is completely metric, so just keep an eye on that. And then you undo this bolt and these two bolts, and the same thing on the other side, and pretty much your entire frame should lower right down. And to support it, I'm going to use the jack, possibly like a piece of plywood or a 4x4 that goes from front to back, so that I can sort of control you know, how it comes down. And I'll show you that, but once I get these bolts off and I start getting this thing lowered. Oh, also, you want to make sure that you undo the catalytic converters from the mounts here. Alright, well, got the subframe dropped. Here it is. Now I got wide open clearance to literally just lower this engine a little bit and pull it right out the front. Got this all done by myself. Mechanic said they wouldn't touch it. Their loss. I'd have paid them $1,200 to do this. The only thing I did see that I did is I sort of messed up the ball joints Not a huge deal though. They sell the bolt-in replacements. I'm gonna have to chisel off those riveted ones, pull them out, put some new ones in. They're pretty cheap. I think they're about like 30 bucks each, so no biggie. Trying to think if there was any lessons learned. No, not really. Went pretty much how I thought it would. What I did do is I got a bunch of those rubber bungees. Can you see them? Got a bunch of those rubber bungees and sort of tied the subframe up in certain spots, like one in the front here to that frame there, and then like around the suspension to the subframe, and same on the other side. And then before I took the bolts off, I got the jack up underneath it just to support it. And then after I had the jack under there and I got all the bolts out, I took off the bungees and started to lower it. You gotta do it little by little though. That is definitely key here, is to do it little by little and check and make sure. One thing I did do is I marked the steering column how it was lined up so that it could go back in the same way, hopefully avoiding like a crooked steering wheel when I put it back together. But other than that, it wasn't that bad. It just took a long time. Oh, and the ball joint remover for this, I rented one from AutoZone. Here, I'll show you it. Ball joint separator. That jam right there, I had one but it wouldn't fit. I thought this one might have been a little better, but it doesn't. And I actually ended up missing one of the bolts with that. The one that they recommend from the dealer, like you could put the bolt on the end and then actually fit that on there and it should pop the ball joint without messing it up. I had better luck with the fork style one. I'll show you that. This one right here, that one worked a little better. Just ram it in there and then hit it. You do need to be careful taking off any of these. They have Allen wrenches on one side, any of the ball joints. You want to prevent them from spinning. At least that's what the book says. I don't know why. If somebody knows, leave it in the description. I figured it was a bearing. It shouldn't hurt, but I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, I use the Allen wrench to keep it from spinning. But there, subframe's out. There's the rack and pinion. And hopefully this all goes well and I'll have this engine changed down like a day or two. But literally I should be able to just lower it a little bit and pull it right out the front. It should be fairly straightforward. Once I get the motor out, I got to transfer over like the transmission and all that stuff. Probably the fuel rail, injectors, the coil packs. I'll put new spark plugs in, and you know, knock sensors, thermostat. Hoping not a fuel line, but yeah, basically all this stuff. I'll have to transfer that over to the new motor. But yeah, this should go pretty good. I don't know if you could tell on video here, but I am wide open. Once I take off this front rail, which unbolts, like I showed you earlier, right there and over there. My spacing is correct and I'm good at my Tetris. I should be able to lower it, shift it to the right a little bit, because I'm actually, when I undo the motor mount, I'm gonna take it off from the engine, clearing pretty much this whole space. So I should be able to lower it, shift it over to the driver's side and roll it straight forward. That should be a done deal. So got the thing out, worked just like I said. Went really smooth, did it all by myself actually. Didn't have any help. It worked really well. It was, like I said, taking off this cross member. Just got a wide open space, dropped it down maybe about 4 inches, shifted it to the right to clear these, and pulled it right out the front. Done. And now just to put everything back together after I get an engine in there. So Just a few things I did forget. When you're taking out that the axle, don't use the bolt. I started doing that and it's not good. I saw a video of some guy doing that. Not a good idea. I think I ended up using a 21 millimeter, where I just used a socket. So I took the bolt out and I found a socket that sat on the axle just right and didn't affect the bore, the splines in the hub, in the bearing or whatever, and just capped it out. Yeah, overall I gotta say this wasn't bad at all. I don't understand why no mechanic shops would do it. I mean, this would have been a lot smoother for them in a shop, because they wouldn't have had it done all this. They could have just dropped it out of the bottom, used a tranny jack or whatever. But it is what it is. Well, it's done. At least, you know, the easy part's done. It's always easy taking stuff apart. It's always harder putting it back together. Trying to think if there's any other lessons learned. I tied up the drive shaft so it'd stay out of the way. Again, those bungee cords came in handy. But other than that, I mean, it's like every other engine removal. I mean, I took a lot more off only because this engine wants to come out the bottom, and I think it has to, because the transmission's mounted. If you unmount the transmission, you could pull this engine out of the top easy. But since I didn't want to take off the transmission, because you literally have to almost drop the engine anyway, I figured it was just easier if I'm gonna already disconnect it instead of reconnecting it again just to take off the transmission. Then yeah, done and done. All right, bye.